Let's say you want to build something using AI, given all the hype there is about it, and it might be a chatbot, a voice AI agent, or some internal assistant as well. And you might be confused which approach to follow because there are a lot out there. The three notable are RAG, just prompt engineering, or fine-tuning your model from scratch. Well, I'm Afaq, and let me walk you through all of these approaches to help you understand in a better way what each of these do and exactly what the problem is that they solve. Now, first of all, prompt engineering. Prompt engineer is basically nothing but simply telling your model how to behave by simply giving it some instructions and some examples. By doing so, you can also include some FAQs or some uh, basic general instructions or knowledge about your company or anything that you might want your chatbot to be aware of. And with that, with a knowledge base and some behavioral patterns, your chatbot will solve more problems than you might think, and it might be enough for the use case that you are trying to build up. This is especially useful if your logic is very simple, straightforward, your knowledge base is limited, especially. And if that is the case, your problem is already solved. You don't have to go to any other approach. You don't have to implement flashy RAG everyone is talking about. You don't have to fine-tune your own model. A very common use case and example for this is your company's chatbot. You see those little chatbot widgets on the bottom right of any website that you open, which answers the questions regarding the company. They can be made simply by using prompt engineering. You don't have to implement anything else. And another example would be a simple lead generation model to which you can simply tell an entire flow of questions it needs to ask, and it would do the job quite well. That is it for the prompt engineering. Now, while it seems enough and you could really solve most of your use cases out there, it is important to understand what happens if your knowledge base gets larger than that. What if you have to integrate external documents, and what if your knowledge base consists of tens, twenties, or even hundreds of pages in form of PDF or Word document? That is where RAG comes in, the flashy RAG everyone is talking about. RAG is simply nothing but basically giving an external source of information to your chatbot before it answers a question. Now, how you will be achieving that? That is a separate concern, and I'll try to make a separate video on that as well. Make sure you follow us for that. So, why RAG can help you achieve something that prompt engineering could not do. What RAG does is, before chatbot gives an answer, it goes and extract the relevant information only the relevant part of the information from the entire document that you have attached, and give that relevant information as a context to chatbot. And then the chatbot would be able to answer given the context it now has. It will solve a lot of your problems. For example, in customer support, where you have a lot of documentation and you cannot feed all of that in prompt engineering, right? It also helps you if your data changes more often, because in prompt engineering, you have to factor in all the parameters very carefully. You should not update your prompt often or very frequently because it might disturb the already set tone or already set behavior of your bot entirely. So you do not want to risk that. And if your prompt is working fine, you should leave it as it is and only change the data attached to it with the help of RAG. So that is it about RAG. Common examples include policy and compliance assistants, or your internal tool, which has to read from a Notion or your PDF documentation for assisting you in any task in your day-to-day work. And of course, customer support, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the very good examples where you could implement RAG in your chatbot. And now there's the next step. We already have integrated a separate knowledge base for your chatbot, and we already set some behavior using prompt engineering. What if you want your behavior to be more specific? What if you do not want to risk some hallucination in the output? Then what you do, only then you will go towards fine tuning. You will do fine tuning when you want some specific task or your bot to be specialized in a specific niche. Only then you will opt for fine tuning of the model. Some examples include medical report generation, which would require some strict format, and you do not want to risk a basic GPT or Gemini call to hallucinate in the formatting it creates at the end. And so you would train your own model to generate that specific format in the result as well. And another example would include legal compliance reports or legal drafts with consistent clauses. That is where you want it to be as precise as possible. But remember, before you go for fine-tuning option, fine-tuning is always expensive, it is harder to debug, and it is always slower to iterate. So you should always think twice before making this investment, and you have to be very sure that you are very niche specific before you go for this option. Don't just go and ask for developers to fine-tune your model because you simply want your bot to answer custom support questions. Well, this is on the very surface level difference between simple prompt engineering, RAG, and fine-tuning your model. And now you understand the differences and what each of these methods do to solve your problems. Please remember that these three approaches are not competing with each other. These three are solving a problem on their own. They all have their own problems to solve, so you don't have to decide which of these tools you have to prefer over the other. If you have a specific problem, then you opt for the specific solution. So to remember all of this, a simple flow will be to always start with prompt engineering and then introduce RAG if you have a knowledge base that is large enough to not fit in a basic prompt. And then you fine tune your model from scratch if you have a very specific niche or honestly just for research purposes. Because honestly, in 90% of the problems that the businesses are solving nowadays, prompt engineering and RAG does the job on their own. And fine tuning only comes when there is a business who is trying to approach a problem that is not yet addressed by the famous LLMs. Because at the end of the day, please remember your users do not care about how much investment you have made in a specific tool. They only care about the results. And trust me, there are far simpler ways to achieve that result. I hope this simple explanation was helpful to you. And if you have any confusion or you want to discuss more, feel free to reach out. Thank you.